All right, so you've met him before because he's been on the Burning platform, but I want to introduce to you Bafana Modise, who's been on with us a couple of times. Bafana is actually going to be doing some new shows with us in the new year, and we've got lots of exciting things to talk to him about. So first of all, welcome, Bafana. Nice to see you.
Oh, thanks, Gareth. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, it was very, very good. So let's just quickly talk about Democracy 101, which is the show we're doing now. It's powered by the Podcast Party. And many people be asking, what the hell is the Podcast Party? Is it a party? Like as in drinks and music and fun and people having a good time of the festive season?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it a political party? Like we're actually registering as a political party in the elections? Well,
with the express reason to party.
Correct. Yeah. So actually, I mean, it's meant to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but next year, of course, we celebrate 30 years of democracy, which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a general election. So we did some research and we did an online survey. We did 4 focus groups here in studio.
Mm-hmm.
We recorded these as podcasts and as YouTube videos, and we've decided to call it VVIP, Voter Voices in Politics.
Yeah.
And you can find them on CliffCentral.com or on YouTube if you haven't watched them already. It's interesting because it will give you insights into what young people are thinking about next year. Everybody goes, yeah, it's such a problem. Young people are not registered to vote. Why are young people so disenchanted with the political process?
When you get to the polls, you don't even know. But I think that's the essence of this, to go out to young people, to get their ideas. Why are you not voting? Or if you are voting, what inspires you? But we have seen for a couple of more years that there's been a decline in voter participation. And going into the streets to the people, not just speaking to politicians or influencers, but to the real guy selling on the streets, the taxi driver, the guy at the mall, let's check us at ShopRite, to say, why are you not active? And what would you do different if you are given the opportunity to be maybe a president or to be a mayor or whatever? So we want to make it more nation-oriented, nation-building orientated,
right,
towards patriotism, towards let's get these young people activated.
Let's make South Africa great again.
I didn't want to say like that.
All right.
You sound like Trump there for one.
So I'll get into some of the interesting results from our I think these were fascinating focus groups because again, if we just listen, then we'll hear what young people actually are saying rather than trying to work it out without even asking them. They'll tell you if you ask them.
Yes.
And this is part of what we're doing with VVIP. So, all right, so there's the podcast party. And in that umbrella, we're going to have shows like this one, Democracy 101.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be doing VVIP with you and with a whole lot of other guys, young people in South Africa who are putting this stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting about what you're going to be doing is you'll be going around the country with Mbali Ntuli and what she's already doing with these young guys who we did the focus groups with. So let's look at some of the results, and I want to hear your comments on these, Bafana. Approximately a third of the people we asked are planning to vote next year, only 1/3. A third are undecided, and a third are not voting, which is much lower than that online survey.
I would say I beg to differ with the fact that most people now, they want to go vote more than ever. The current issues in the country, people are starting to say, I need to make a difference. I need to be part of the system somehow. If you can look at how many political parties are mushrooming out of anywhere, if you can look at how churches even themselves are trying to unite and have some political voice, there is that appetite for politics. In terms of who to vote for, that would be the problem. But then I feel like maybe the survey might be wrong on the idea that people are not as appetized to vote. It's just an issue of how do you teach someone of their responsibility as a citizen.
And it's not just voting. There's a whole lot more that goes into it too. So we can look at some of these things later. But I want to bring in Mbali at this point because she's a well-known name in South Africa. She's the founder and CEO of something called the Groundwork Collective, which is a community development initiative that focuses, among other things, on food security, access to water. But here today, we're going to talk civic education and a little bit of social entrepreneurship. She's, of course, a former politician. She was 15 years as a councillor. And I mean, she's so young. I can't believe you were a councillor for 15 years.
15 years as a politician. 10 of those years at MPL.
Still 15 years as a politician. And look, you've survived and you don't have wrinkles and you look fresh. Fantastic. All right, so let's just talk about what you've done before, because people are going to go, oh, I know that name. 15 years as a councillor and MPL, serving the province of KwaZulu-Natal, political leader, public speaker, activist. You're also the youngest person to contest for the leadership of South Africa's official opposition party in 2020. And now you're doing this Groundwork Collective stuff, which, among other things, is encouraging young people to vote. That's the whole topic of discussion this morning. How's that going, Mbali?
It's going incredibly well. So we actually don't just encourage people to vote because that doesn't complete the loop. We know that young people in particular are not voting, and that's a behavior. So if you want to change a behavior, you have to do numerous things to be able to change it. So we go out, we register young people. We then also give them civic education, because we've actually found that that is the link of what's missing with South Africans being able to fully utilize their democracy, is that they just believe that every 5 years you go out and you vote and things are going to magically happen, when actually we have such a participatory democracy. And if you want it to work, it's what you do in between. But nobody knows what they're supposed to do in between. So we make sure that we fill that gap in to tell people how their government work, how electoral processes work. What are these ward committees? What are these things that you should be knowing about as a citizen to be a fully active citizen? And then we also get these young people to protect the election. So next year, we'll also be getting them to become observers on the day of elections, because we think that that's also a really cool way to get people to see and physically take part in their democracy. So it's been going great. We've done some wonderful pilots. We are at every kind of place where young people are. We congregate at universities, institutions of higher learning, taxi ranks, wherever there are young people, we go out and we meet them there. And then, of course, we've also just launched a digital portal, which has the back-end API with the IEC, so people can go and physically register on our site. And of course, then they get to win really cool prizes. At the moment, it's KFC vouchers, but there's all kinds of cool stuff that we allow them to win. And again, it's just one of the ways that we try to incentivize young people to get excited about their democracy.
All right, so let's just focus on this idea that registration is a part of it. And the nice thing that you do is you also just allow them to scan a QR code, and it takes you straight through to the website where you make sure that you're registered, and you can do it in a flash. I mean, it's really very easy to do. The events that you're doing sound like a great excuse for people to also just get together and start talking about this stuff. Have you had any resistance at all? Is there anyone who doesn't like the idea that you're coming into communities, that you're setting yourself up, that you're getting people? Is there anybody who's against this in South Africa? Because we hear that, oh, young people aren't interested in registering, and we hear that the political parties all want them to. We hear that everybody's behind this. But are there South Africans who don't want registrations?
So I think in general, of course, most people are behind registration. I think that, it's a fallacy to say that young people don't care about their democracy. They absolutely care, but they are put off by politicians, that's for sure. And studies show that they don't like the behavior of politicians, and then they feel that they are ineffective. But for us, we haven't received any resistance from communities. In fact, a number of times, some political entities have tried to hijack our events. But we do always have security there, so that's great. And I don't mean hijack in a dramatic sense. I think they just want to be a part of what's happening. But I mean, of course, political parties themselves aren't in the business of registering people that aren't going to vote for them. So they have the approach of only registering people that they are sure will turn out for them. So we are non-partisan. We register people indiscriminately across the board. And that does make some political parties a little bit nervous, because then what it means, which is kind of the point of why we're doing it, is that there's going to be all these people that are registered, that they don't have any control over, which means that they're actually going to have to engage these people and see what they want, or risk having them vote for other people. And that's exactly the point. We want to make it a numbers game so South Africans can realize that there are more of us than there are of politicians, and we should be calling the shots. And so the only way one of the first ways to do that is to be on that voters roll, so that political parties get nervous.
Let me ask you and Bafana and Bakh'abantu here quickly, because we researched with some of the young people that we had in studio. We recorded podcasts with them and basically did these focus groups just to ask young people what their interest or disinterest in politics is and where it comes from. So a lot of them say that they believe government has lost to corruption. 1 in 4 people say that they're willing to re-elect them because they don't have faith in the other parties. In other words, that the opposition may even be worse than the ANC. and all participants feel as if the youth are neglected. Now, that last one isn't surprising to me because everybody always feels they're neglected by government, because frankly, we are. But do you have any comments on that first part, that a quarter of people are willing to re-elect the ANC because they don't like opposition parties? Mbali, you can go first.
Yes, and I mean, that's not the only study that's shown that. In fact, the center, I mean, Afrobarometer put out a survey earlier this year, and it also said that the distrust in opposition parties was so high amongst not just young people, amongst general citizens, that opposition parties are at the very bottom in terms of institutions that people trust, which then gives them the option of either voting for what we already have or staying at home. And this is why we have this problem. And then the other stats also, I think, check out of the work that we've done. And then interestingly, and this is where people, I think, are not focusing, is that 76% of respondents in the Afrobarometer study also said that they would be willing to give up elections and democracy if there was a leader or a party that could promise them jobs and security. And that is incredibly worrying for a country that has such a young democracy. But it also shows you just how precious and on the precipice we are if we don't kind of get busy with trying to rectify the situation we find ourselves.
I wouldn't mind just for a moment hovering over that Afrobarometer study, because that's really, really interesting stuff. In fact, you were the one who showed it to me, Mbali. And I want to put it on screen so people can see who do you think South Africans trust the most, and who do you think we trust the least? I mean, this is fascinating stuff, because you would imagine that certain groups would come out looking good, other groups would come out looking bad, but it's not who you think it is. So I'm going to put it up on screen, and then I want Mbali to just quickly take us through some of it, because I found these results fascinating, and it's not as cut and dried as we think it is. You mentioned the opposition parties, how actually a lot of people find them quite untrustworthy. Also, media organizations come in for quite a lot of crit. Not everybody thinks that they are particularly good at delivering the truth or saying what's really happening, right? So you want to just let's look at the people who are the worst first. Okay, I'm going to put this up on screen quickly. And then you can comment on this, and feel free to jump in, Bafana, and feel free to jump in, Bakh'abantu, wherever you like as well here. So here it is. This is the Afrobarometer research that Mbali was talking about. Who do South Africans trust, especially when it comes to talking about politics and elections? So at the bottom are opposition parties, right at the bottom. Then next up are local councils, police, provincial premier. Ruling party is 27%, and that compares opposition party 24%. So not that much daylight between the two of them, actually. Parliament only at 28%. And then you get in the middle traditional leaders, the Electoral Commission, and the president. The president, 38% of people believe the president is trustworthy. Then you've got South African Revenue Services, SARS, then the Public Protector, religious leaders, courts of law, and the army doing very well at 49%. The Department of Health at 56%, government broadcasters 61%, and then at the top, independent broadcasters 63%. What do we make of that?
Sure.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And I think, for me, what it says is, one, certainly when it comes to the top two, we have a lot of work to do with the information that we're giving out to people. But people trust people that seem authentic and not beholden to anyone. So that's great to see that we still have at least that muscle memory of not just believing anything that we're told. I'm always surprised that the army is so high, considering that they're not they don't directly affect the average citizen's life on a daily basis. But maybe
they're not very visible.
Yeah, not very much visible.
And when they are, they're usually there in support in the background, So, and I don't know how much of an army we still have, to be perfectly honest.
But like the concept of an army is great, right? You think you're protected from external threats. We don't have external threats. We don't have wars. So I guess the army is doing a good job. Like, just if you don't think about it,
the idea of an army, you feel more protected. You feel like, here we have leadership.
Yeah, we are led.
Bafana, what do you think of the fact that opposition parties have such low levels of trust?
I think the best time in our history of opposition parties was when the times of the DA under Musi Maiman and the likes of Mbali's, and there was those row in parliament against Zuma. But with the recent leader, president, I haven't seen much opposition. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the EFF just makes noise and keeps quiet after a long time, and people don't trust the EFF as that voice for the general public, but for the few in society. But in terms of other political parties, yes, they are there, they speak in parliament, but they haven't seen much action, much political headlines talking about we want that. So you would say that Cyril somehow has managed to kind of neutralize all opposition against him, and he's having a free flow. Looking at what is happening in the country right now with load shedding, with the currency issue, and all of these things, you would expect that there will be a march on the streets of Safe SA or whatever they did a couple of years ago, but you don't see that. So I feel like the opposite.
Why are you laughing, Mbali?
So I don't feel that. I think the opposition was only alive under Zuma. Then that was the time it was hot. Bakh'abantu.
So I have an opinion on this, right? So back to the way this was originally sparked, right?
Sure.
Rather the devil you know than the devil you don't, right? This is why people feel like they should vote for the ANC instead, or just not vote at all. But that's not how it works. You don't have to choose one devil. This is how this is why civics matters. We can choose a coalition. We can choose multiple people that represents different interests that can speak together to a common goal.
True.
Not one person, but we have become beaten with this bat that like only one party can rule.
I think also is that thing of South Africans, most of them, I will speak for most our people, black people, they have this loyalty to the ANC, right? And they feel like if it's not the ANC, then who would it be?
Then this is the second part
because that would be the fear of change. Because I think there was this fear of change to say we might be jumping to this one, to the worse one. But also what I've seen throughout the years is how most political parties have managed to grow, like your Action SA, they are growing. There is appetite now for alternative. It's just that we haven't really figured out which is the alternative.
Yes, so this is where my second point now comes in with Bafana, is that there is no alternative in South Africa. You speak to loyalty that we have for the ANC. I would say it's Stockholm syndrome. We have become so trapped by our captors that we have, we will do whatever they want us to do at this point because it can't get any better than this. They freed us from the horrendous, apartheid regime. But that's not an entire thing. And I disagree with your sentiment that parties are growing. Parties are not growing. They're converting ANC votes. So there is an appetite of alternatives, but these parties are not growing. They're just converting voters that are already in the voters roll. So what Mbali is doing of making new voters and teaching people why they should participate in their system, that's key. Then moving to Cyril being really great, right? No, this is no. Just because your team is winning, right? This goes back to South Africa in general. When you watch the derby, we're all filled there like at FNB Stadium. No, just because this team is winning 1-0. Pirates are not a great team, guys. It just beats Kaizer Chiefs all the time. Doesn't make it a great team. Just means Kaizer Chiefs sucks.
But not all the time. Order, not all the time.
Can I just say two quick things just about this? So on the one hand, South Africans are probably one of the toughest groupings of people to engage politically. And let's just take away, the political parties. But because we are a nation of people that we don't like what we currently have, but at the same time, anytime somebody puts up their hand to say, okay, I think I'm prepared to lead, I'd like a chance, we are very quick to say, well, who are you? Who do you think you are? Why do you think you should be able to lead? We have too many parties. We shouldn't be having more parties. And we get stuck in this constant conversation of inertia around who's trying to be a politician, as opposed to thinking about how we are making sure that politicians, whoever they might be, think about us. So we have to reframe the way that we think, I think, as South Africans about our role and about politicians and political parties, because we're going to keep getting stuck, to your point, in this inertia of, well, then what can we do? What can we say? We're just going to have to accept load shedding. But we're also just such a notorious bunch that doesn't, we only want things at a very specific time, in a very specific way, with a very specific leader. And I think it's because of the exceptionalism of having Nelson Mandela and the liberation movement and how it all started, that we stuck very much on thinking that we're going to recreate that, instead of understanding that, one, we have to work for it, and two, anyone that's going to come out is never going to have all of those perfect traits. We have to also train them into it. But be very quick to just want something that's already tailor-made and ready. And this is, of course, why everyone also thinks that, they can buy the electorate and quickly get in and take a shot. And they probably can, because we're also very easily to move nations sometimes by giving people chances. So you only need 45,000 seats to get into parliament. Once you're there, you can earn the same amount of money as an opposition leader. You'll get your salary on top of that, and you'll get political party funding from the IEC. So being a politician is quite lucrative in this country if you can get it, and you can. And what irritates me is that the average South African doesn't know that they could probably just do it better than political parties. So one of the other things I'd love to do, and I think we must do, start localizing elections and teaching people how to campaign where they are. There's no reason why either of you can't be somebody who stands. I mean, councillors are part-time, the majority of them, part-time in your council, and actually do things to work. But if we're going to be expecting that other people are going to do it, we're always going to get the bottom of the barrel of the people that we see representing us.
Right.
No, and I think I like that, Mbali, to say you've taken a journey to educate people. It's sad when people vote based on Mandela back in history and are ignoring what is happening today. There are still people who are voting because they were given RDP. Some are even screaming the 350s to say, I'm getting 350 from the ANC, so I'm going to vote ANC. But they don't understand their responsibility. They don't understand the power that they hold. And also for the past 5 years, we have seen what is happening. We can't be we gotta use the same tactic over and over again. Somebody said it must be insanity that you keep on doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
I want to ask you all something else. Is that when we did this focus group, the majority of the people believe that the old people are the only reason that the ANC is still in power. And this has come up a couple of times. It's like, what do we do about the older people who are just voting on loyalty? And I mean, is that their prerogative and they're entitled to do it? Or do we have to sit with our elders and discuss with them, hey, listen, this country is not doing very well at the moment. And as a young person who wants to make the most of our lives, there isn't a lot of opportunity for us here, and you have to help me get there. Or is that just a lost cause?
I mean, I think it is the old people, Gareth, but also again, I can tell you that it is the rebranding of the ANC every 5 years, right? So, for example, Cyril. Most people still believe that Cyril was the Mandela we had been waiting for, right?
Are you joking?
Ramaphoria, as they call it.
Who are these people?
To my men and all of that. People
they fell for that?
People fell for that. The branding was so good.
You're still praying for Cyril, Gareth.
Yeah. and some people actually believe that this guy would save South Africa. He's better than Zuma. He's he's a businessman. He understands the economy. I remember he spoke about 6 million jobs. Like, oh, you didn't understand jobs, 6 million jobs. The guy went to say 1 million houses in Alex. People were like, oh, this is the guy for us.
He did turn on a tap the other day in KwaZulu-Natal, right? I think he did.
Yes, and my former constituency for a water scheme that should have been there like 6 years prior to that.
Yeah, the same way he filled up a pothole on a gravel road. But he's our president. But what I'm saying is that people still have this idea that the ANC could be better because they are so scared of being led by white folks. And also remember, there's a narrative now that whoever doesn't sound revolutionary or like they're from the jungle in the Mkonto, it's either they are bought by whites, they are puppets, they are white monopoly capital. That narrative.
I think that South Africans have been ready to take our country forward more than politicians have allowed. The reason in 2016 that we saw coalition parties coming was because people strategically were voting in different political parties in different places. And that's why you ended up having, I think, over 81 municipalities in the hands of other political parties. And in KZN, certainly there's been a lot of power sharing and power changing. What they don't have is the mechanisms about what they do after that. And that's where we get stuck, because if somebody's a crappy ward councillor, what do? Unless you can wait for their political party to recall them or for them to die, a citizen feels as though they're stuck with that person or stuck with that particular political party. And they don't know that there are things that they can do even before we get to that situation. So we have to
wait for them to die.
Until the house calls them.
In my particular area, we have a by-election on tomorrow. And we're voting again because the previous councillor killed the previous councillor to get.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're in Natal. No?
And now we actually don't even feel the difference of whether we have one or not, because we just do things on our own. We take back our rates from municipalities and we employ our own people to do all these kinds of things. And yes, it creates a parallel state, but things work. And it's part of our legislation, it's part of our Property Act from 2004 and part of the Municipal Revenue Act, as well as part of the bylaws. And these are the things that people don't know that they can do without having to wait for a political party. But Gareth, just to your point about what you were saying, it is old people, sure, but also the second biggest group that isn't voting is 42 to 59. So even old people are done. There was a by-election in Butterworth where 13 people showed up.
13?
13. And there's another one, I think it's just about a year and a half ago, where 26 people showed up for Ward 26 in Etigrini. So there's heartfulness across the board, across age groups. And what we need older people to do is actually to have these conversations with younger people, because we assume that these conversations are happening in their home. They are not. Since 1994, that conversation has gone down. I think people assume that they know what their grandparents vote for and that their grandparents know what they vote for. I would push back and say that we're not even having enough of these conversations.
Well, in some ways, this is encouraging. I mean, if 13 people pitched up in Butterworth for a by-election,
and that's where I'm from,
that means, well, you should be embarrassed that you weren't there. I mean, this also means, Mbali, that you can have an outsized impact by pitching up, by making your voice heard. That should be encouraging for people. In the land where everybody else stays at home and keeps quiet, you can be the one who goes out and makes it happen.
Okay. What I feel, Gareth, right, is that once you have elected someone, people just, they voted, there's a new party.
That's where they stop.
That's when they stop. And the councillor can absolutely do nothing. When you go to the villages, into the rural areas, there's a councillor that probably doesn't even live in the village anymore. He has hired a house in town. He comes to the village once in a while to check them out, goes to council.
In a G-Wagon.
My brother. The man will be flexing on his own people. So you still have that problem whereby people are not necessarily patriotic or they're not necessarily well educated on how do we get rid of politicians who are not doing their job.
Bafana, let's say we have Mbali's hugely successful.
Yes.
And people are just absolutely thrilled to be a part of what the Groundwork Collective are doing. And let's say she has success in helping them start up their own businesses, food security, because I know you're helping people do that too, Mbali. But let's say all of that's a runaway success. And let's say that the VVIP that you're launching now with us, this Voters' Voices in Politics, also hugely successful. We get young people there in their droves and they vote, and we have an unbelievably complex coalition government, but they're all holding each other to account, and it's exciting. It's a whole new era in South Africa. What do they have to do after the election? What happens then? Because you're saying there's more to be done, but what more? What do people need to do? Do they need to stand in their local ward and make themselves available for election? Do they need to join a political party as a member and be put on a party list? Or do they just have to do things around the community, which many people are already doing?
I think the first thing is, if you are active in your ward, then you'll be able to hold your leader accountable. But if you're not active in your ward, if you're not part of...
What does that mean? Going to outside their house when the water and electricity is off,
for an example,
with a shambok? I mean, what do you want us to do?
It starts there, Gareth.
It starts there, Gareth. You being brought up, with a CPF and getting rid of Nyaupes, and tomorrow morning is some guy stealing from somebody's house and you are there. And next thing, you are dealing with the gardening in the community. You are picking up trash. You are active in the community, and the councillor himself becomes... it needs to play a role with it. But I think once you are active to say why there is no water here, but there was a budget that was taken out, things like that, people start to wake up to the reality. But again, if you can ask anyone, what is the budget they're housing for Gauteng or for Johannesburg? What is the budget for water? Who is getting what tender to where? People don't even know about these things. So as the more we get people to be active,
to participate
in their communities,
then
they will hold their leaders accountable. Then they will keep them running.
Ask the same question then, because Mbali, I know, has got it prepared. She's thought these things through. She's got an answer as well. You don't want us to pitch up at the ward councillor's house with a shambok. You've got a better plan.
You come there with a patrol.
And let me work backwards so people can understand why it is that they need to play the role they're in. If we're complaining about ISCOM and load shedding, it is incredibly overwhelming to say that you, one person in your particular neighborhood, is going to change some macroeconomic policy that's been taken at a national level about what happens with energy regeneration or whatever. You don't want to overwhelm people by saying, you know, we're trying to do this so we can solve big problems. People won't believe you because they know that they don't have that kind of power. And secondly, it's too theoretical for them in their minds how they would think about that. So you need to make it very, very close to where they are, so they have a sense that they can actually do something there. And you say to them, the first thing you should do is you should go and actually sit on your ward committee. Know what's actually happening right outside your road. So you can stand for election or you can go for the meetings. You should know when your council meetings are. And if you don't know, you can demand that your councillor actually lets you know, or you can look at the municipal website so that you know what's actually happening. And any South African can go to any meeting of any legislature or legislative sitting in this country as long as they bring their ID. That goes for council, parliament, and legislative systems. That is your right as a South African to know what's happening in a house that is for all of us. You should also be getting involved in things like understanding the IDP process. You can't complain about the fact that there's a burst water pipe outside of your house if you didn't actually say to the councillor when the process was happening, you need to allocate money because it's going to be, you know, or there's a burst pipe or there's been a burst pipe or whatever the case is. That is. These things by law have to happen every single time and every single year that they're called, and you as a citizen get to go and speak to them. That's the first kind of suite of things that people should understand, and they should understand that that is their right. Because then what you can do is say, okay, now I sit there, I sit at the CPF, I get to make decisions about what's happening in policing in my neighborhood. I can say and help the police direct their resources to places where we as a community think that they should be going. Similarly for SGBs and schools, again, something that actually calls for parents and people in the area to be able to participate in the education policies that happen with their kids. All of these things start at a ground level. All of them are participatory. When people understand they can do that, they quickly then understand the mechanisms of how they must actually get themselves organized amongst themselves. And once you have that and you have people starting to feel and see the face of, hey, we have a UIP, which is an urban improvement precinct in our area. We can get our verges cut, or, I don't know, take away indigenous, invasive plants, or whatever issues that are important in that particular neighborhood. Then you actually start to see people believing that they can have a change. And when they believe that they can have a change, then they start demanding more from the councillor. The councillor, of course, is then going to have to put pressure on their political party in the city to make sure that the things that they are being asked for are actually done. Right. And the people in the city are going to make sure that they're telling the MPs and the MPLs that, hey, we've got a lot of pressure from these particular neighborhoods. This is what are the things that they want. We need a participation. And that's how you escalate the chain upwards. So you don't have to think that you have to do something at the very top. You can do things right at the very bottom. And so when we do the civics training, we give people these practicals. I mean, there's like 1,000 other things that I can mention. I don't want to take up too much time, but there are many practical steps that people can take to actually sit on these things, do these things. You can go to the speaker at the.
All right. So let me ask all of you quickly, because there's a point that Congo Chris makes. He says some of us have to go to work and do our actual jobs. It is the politicians' jobs to do this stuff. I know that when someone isn't doing their job, we all have to pitch in and help. But it is, he says, they must do their job. It's their job. We have every right to complain when they don't do their job. This is gaslighting.
Like, he's speaking to this policing thing. Why should we be a parent in the room telling them, no, like, don't eat that, don't take that. You should know, because we elected you for the specific role.
But they don't know.
But the problem is this, Bakh'abantu. I'm Bafana in Soweto. I have never been to any government institution or learn anything about governance. I was a member of the party. Now I've been made a councillor and MMC. I have a political office, and what we have also what we call the professional staff in municipalities. These guys, they don't just go there to show up with blue lights, or they drive around town going to political events. Even this IDP that Mbali speaks about, it's a process. But you know what I hate is that it becomes just a formality. They get their people that they know within that site and say, we have passed the process.
What is the minimum?
because we allow it. And to Chris's point, this is exactly the compact that we have to decide as South Africans. Do we want to think that politicians can make the decisions on our behalf, or do we want to tell them how they should be spending our taxes? Because our constitution says they have to come ask us what it is that we want. That's why we need to take these things and say to them, this is what we want to plan, this is what we want to plan. And in terms of the meetings, I mean, then you can also have a negotiation about when there's a hold. And there also are regulations around when those should be and how many people should be able to attend and how long the notice and all of those things should be. But the average African doesn't even know that. So they can't say that they hate the way politicians behave when they have a mechanism to change it, and then they also don't want to use that mechanism. We have to decide what kind of citizens we want to be. And I can tell you now that the democracies that thrive the most in the world are the ones that have the most active citizens. It's not the ones that have the best economic policies or the ones that seem to be, you know, the best at getting things done. Those things only happen because they have citizens that force them to be able to do those things.
Right.
And I like that example because, like, just to bring it closer back to home, it's like what you said about SGBs. Schools that thrive are...
I've lost hearing.
To what Bafana was saying about these processes are being abused, a friend of mine always brings up a point, is like he doesn't understand why he should be led or should, like, let's say he always makes the example of Fikile Mbalula, not to go after someone, but like he says he's not good at anything. He's a zoologist who has his master's degree. He's like, why should this person tell me up and dictate policy to me when he cannot do anything else besides talk?
And that is the reality, about to say. And certainly when you go for political party office, you find that people don't care about your qualifications. They care about your popularity more, right? It's more about how popular you are and how eloquent and funny you speak.
That's politics all over the world.
But then the problem is that
it is a popularity contest.
But you have to be a mayor at some point. You need to know what is a budget. You need to know how to run your stuff. You need to even know how to use Microsoft Office. So
I was going to say in the best world, but I think that we also can't have a conversation about what rationalities people use to vote, because you're never going to convince every single person about what it is. They could vote for you based on your socks. What we don't need to do is, you know, and analyzing why people vote the way they do. What we need to do is say, when those people, whoever they are, buffoons or not, are voted in, what can we do to make sure that they work or that we fire them? Because if you try to think that you're going to be able to change how people rationalize how they vote, they'll be here forever because everyone votes on all kinds of wacky reasons.
I mean, America's going to decide between a man who's lost his mind and a man who's only in his own mind the whole time. So we don't know which one. I mean, how can you rationalize any of that stuff? You're so right, Mbali. We get stuck on these things and we try to solve problems that are unsolvable when there are actually things we can start solving.
No, but I think at some point it has to be regulated, guys. I think
what you mean qualify the politicians?
Yeah, how to qualify to run for political office? I just don't think
some of the people in politics,
anyone can just go wake up in the morning.
Some of the people in politics have degrees in public administration, but they're still terrible people. I'm with Mbali here. You can't actually do anything there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was going to speak to this. Like, also, we did try that. We did say, "Oh, can you bring some formal results?" And then Nokolo Kivit came with 2 master's degree where she doesn't have an undergrad.
and there've been politicians who've all been found out for lying about their qualifications. Anyway, listen, that's not gonna save us. It's credentialism, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you get the best people in. I mean, it's more important to my mind that people like you guys, Mbali, Bafana, you guys are all making a difference in civil society where you actually have more power. You have more power to operate. You don't have to comply with the red tape and the rules of party politics and internal politics and provincial or national government. Those people's hands, I'm not making excuses for them, believe me, but their hands are often tied. And there's so much that they can't do that you can and that we can as ordinary citizens. Carl says, I'm on the SGB at my daughter's school. That's the governing body. It's run like a private school. It's very difficult to find differences between it and a private school. And you see, because you're involved, you can say that to us. And because you're involved, your daughter will be getting a better education. But if you abdicate responsibility, and I know you want to jump in on this, Bakh'abantu, but the minute you let someone else decide the important things in your life, your health, your school, your kids' education, your own job security, the minute you farm that out and get someone else to be your agent in that world, you're going to get much worse results almost every time. So I'm sorry about the people like Chris in the comments who's saying, this isn't my job. I know, Chris, I feel your pain. But actually, if we don't all pitch in, it's going to become your problem, whether it's your job or not.
And it does speak to what Mbali was saying about we do need to participate a lot in this country, and giving people those tools to participate is the biggest step. It's not just voting. It's not just making that one decision. It's continuously making that decision.
A very important question from Sanele, who's very, very interested in politics. Guys, is Bafana Tim Modise's son or nephew? The resemblance is as striking visually as it is vocally. Any relation?
No, no relation. We share the same surname, but no, I don't know the guy.
And Modise is obviously...
the voice, actually, now that they mentioned,
No, thanks. Yeah. I can just claim to be Tim Modise 2.0. But you're right, Gareth, in the idea that we need to be, and I think our success, me and Mbali on the streets, it's what also will turn, as a result, we will start to see most people being vocal about the legalities around what must be done, the laws, the voter education is very important. I just hate the fact that when people are about to vote, there's a truck of alcohol and some beer and some couple of celebrities coming to dance. I don't know what happened to Chomi. Chomi used to be the one who would do the things. And people will just go and vote. But I feel like now we need to vote based on merits. Who needs to be there? What can he deliver? And how can you hold him accountable? Yes. So I think as you go onto the streets, me and Mbali will be able to get our people to be conscientized, to say it's more than just that food parcel. It's 5 years after that food parcel. Yes. This is your life.
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think of the fact that these political parties will do whatever it takes in the lead up to the election and then they disappear? I mean, they will literally bribe someone with a T-shirt to vote for them, and then they're gone.
I mean, have you seen Joburg lately? Every pothole has been filled up. There's some fixing happening everywhere. There's some work being done.
I see this,
and that doesn't happen in the past 4 years.
Is that Al Jama?
That's commando right there. Hard work.
Right.
So I see that it is a norm of the party towards a year before the election. There is this big project coming up. There is roads being fixed. There is whatever being built. But then after the election, they disappear. And it's not only just the ruling party, even all other parties. Once they are in parliament, they are driving around nice cars, living in parliamentary village. They only talk about our problems as the poor of the poor in Soweto. But they don't even, they don't come to us. They don't even understand who we are.
So let's say that there are people listening right now, Mbali, who are hugely inspired by what you guys have said, that want to help you. What can they do to help Groundwork Collective? And Bafana, afterwards, what can they do to help you with VVIP? Where can people get involved?
Lovely.
Thanks. So obviously people can go onto our website or our social media, but the things that we really need help with is spreading the message. So like we said, we've made things very easy with our QR codes and our links to get young people registered. Stats SA says that on average, everyone knows 2.5 people that are not registered. So people can just do something as simple as start sharing that on their WhatsApp groups, share it with their nieces and nephews. If you have a small business, share it with your employees. Maybe they have kids or maybe they themselves are not registered. In fact, do a survey to see how many of your employees are actually registered, because you want to know that people that are working for you also have the idea that they are part of actually solving the problems that we have in this country. So that's the one thing, is to really spread awareness and to really put this out there everywhere so we can reach as many people. I mean, we're speaking to schools because we're also developing programs to get into civic educations and curriculum in schools and universities. And we're also going to many corporates. But the other thing is also volunteer on election day. Come and join us, even if it's something as simple as just making sandwiches for people that are going to be sitting there the whole day, making sure they protect their election. It can be something as small as that, or offering to bring water, or donating to bring some water, or stationery pads. It doesn't have to be these huge acts of service that people think that there are. There'll be many of us, 10,000 around the country doing this. And I can guarantee you that for an organization like myself, trying to provide food and things to those kind of people is hard. So everyone lives within or close to their voting station. You can volunteer for a couple of hours. Go sit there with the IEC, watch the election happening, observe, and make sure that you're protecting your democracy. It will take 3 hours out of your day. It's nothing.
I mean, I remember I stood in a queue for 3 hours on election day anyway. So,
Yeah.
Sure. Where were you voting?
no, I was pleased to see that a lot of people pitched up in my municipality. A lot of people in my local ward went to vote.
It's 94.
No. The last local and provincial government elections.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and I was quite impressed with that because obviously then I live in a neighborhood where people give a shit, which is cool.
That's
right?
great because
I like that. So I don't mind waiting in a queue. And as Mbali says, if you're in a municipality where people are doing less, then that means you have the excuse to get involved more.
True.
Good call. And we will give out all the details of the Groundwork Collective on the site when we put the podcast up. So you can go then and find out more by joining up with Mbali's social media and everything else. But let's turn to VVIP, Voters' Voices in Politics, and what you're doing, Bafana. Tell us how we can get involved there.
So we are going to the streets of Joburg, everywhere. There's Northwest, Northern Cape. We are coming to the nearest city, the nearest town. And what we would love you to do is to welcome us. We are the platform. We want you to speak to us. So don't be scared of my voice. Come to the microphone, speak your mind.
Right.
Secondly, also, the support is needed. We are a small team. We are trying to run on the best possible budget. So if you have some money in there, send that money and let's build a nation together. I think also in terms of expertise, if you know or you are good in media space, whatever your profession might be that could benefit this project even further. If you want to donate to that, please come through. Let's work together. But what are we? We are a voice. We will be speaking to the people on the ground, a platform for all young people to share their thoughts about voting and our nation.
And I just want to throw this in too, which I think will be very, very valuable going forward, is that for anybody in a commercial enterprise who wants to know what young people think, that research is invaluable. Right. I mean, Mbali, you're going to be discovering all kinds of things from young voters that will be massively applicable in the marketplace for brands who want to get hold of these young people, for people who want to engage with them in a meaningful way and who want to know what they truly think. We'll ask them for you and we'll put it all together and make it useful for you. So there's digital collaboration, there's strategic content creation, there's education, there's inspiration. There's a whole lot of good stuff going down here, and people can find out all about that as part of the podcast party and VVIP, and then obviously with Groundwork Collective too. So well done, everybody. I think this is the start.
Yep.
We've still got, they haven't announced the election yet, so they'll probably do it around May. What do you suggest there, Mbali? Probably around May, June, maybe?
The rumors are definitely that it's probably going to be around the 22nd of May as it stands.
Okay.
Oh, it's not the first. Some billionaires said the 1st of May. I don't know where they got that thing from. But you never know. We'll hear. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. Very good. Mbali, keep doing the good work that you're doing. It's amazing to see how many people you're reaching on a daily basis and helping to inspire these people to become the leaders that they want, rather than waiting for someone to just magically pitch up like a genie out of a bottle. I mean, we all look at our politicians and we go, is that the best we can do?
Dude,
you know?
We are the ones we've been waiting for.
No, but you're laughing because you know it's true, right? You're like, is that what we deserve?
Is that the best we can do? Have you seen the parliament? Is it our parliament, chief? Is it clear? Hey, let me keep quiet. Hey, people are watching.
There's no parliament. It's still burnt out. You know.
Well, they arrested
the sittings. I've said the sittings. How people are falling asleep. Some are walking on slow motion. I'm like, how do you run a country like that? But anyway, let me keep quiet.
All right, very good. Well, we will be keeping you up to date right here on CliffCentral.com with all of the stuff that we're doing. The stuff we're doing with Mbali, the stuff that we're doing with Bafana, and most importantly, the things that you can get involved in. So thanks, everybody. And good luck. Power to all of you. I know that there's a little break coming up with the December holidays. Everybody deserves a break, even hardworking people like Mbali. But we will be back in the new year, and we'll be hitting this running and making lots of things happen along the way. So stay with us, and we'll keep you filled in as well. Very, very good. Thanks, Mbali. Thanks, Bafana.
Oh, thanks,
good stuff. Awesome.
See you in Jan, buddy. Let's go work.
Godspeed.
Yeah, very good.
Bye.
All right. Cheers, everybody. And we will
Cheers.
see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early. Cheers. Bye-bye.